Boom, boom, blam. What's up? My name is Larry Belfield, and I'd like to welcome you to the show. Welcome to the Belfield Show, you guys. I'm going to do a little dance or something. Boom, boom, boom. A little intro dance or something to get you guys fired up about this episode, because this is an episode near and dear to my heart. Today, we're talking about Warriors. Not the 5-time NBA championship Warriors, but Warriors in general. The Warriors of the New World, actually. Most people would call them Native Americans, but calling them, someone native in the country that they're in is kind of like Native or American. So we'll just call them the original people. I like to call them the originals, the OGs, the people that were inhabiting this land before the East it came in. What I saw when I first looked at the Indian was something different. Most people would see this and say, yeah, that's Indian, right? But actually, this is actually something different. This is a highly advanced warrior. When I actually started looking at the warrior, I didn't see anything common. I saw something very strange, something very weird. I actually had to look very closely and very detailed at the warrior's clothes. I had to actually break down the warrior himself, piece by piece. Now, the first image you see is an advanced warrior. Glamorous, beautiful, covered in all of the natural elements of the land, feathers and skins, okay, and paints, okay, and cymbals, drums, okay, headdresses. Look at these wonderful things that they have, that they are adorned with. Okay? Now, I didn't see normal. I saw something else. After all the studying of culture, I saw things look out of place. Now, there are many descriptions of what the indigenous people look like. The problem is, we, hundreds of years later, we look at the people of the plain as one continuous people that never changed over time at all or since we met them. See, after going across the whole world, I started to see, the pieces, the changes, the growth. When you see this American, you believe this is the way he's always been. But it may be hard to believe. But what you see now is the man worth 1,000 years of innovation. Excuse me, thousands of years of innovation. There are many things that the original people of this continent had. So I went up and looked up the original people from all around the world. And this is where things get weird. You see, we are shy from our nakedness. We don't ever remember a time that we're completely naked. See, this is the true world as we know it. Let's look at these people up in here. There's far more nakedness than clothedness. There are far more reliances on the earth than reliance on man. See, we must remove our ideas and only follow the evidence at hand. So sometimes we forget who really provides for mankind. See, if we look at the painting and the artwork, we've got much to discuss. First, we have to start taking away things that they didn't really have access to. Understand? The first thing that we're going to have to remove out of the Inca's garb, out of this warrior's advanced clothing, is actually the painting itself. The picture of this warrior would be impossible for the Incas to make in their own land because they had no access to oil paints. They had no access to parchments. They had no access to art classes. So, the first thing that must go is the actual picture, the depiction of what the Indians look like. The only image that we have is our own depiction of what they look like. So, what we thought, what was Inca, is really just a drawing made up hundreds of years after the true people had actually met. For what we know, the people of America have always migrated from north to south, and vice versa, from one people scattered throughout the Americas. However, the mass majority of them roamed free, following the warmth of the sun and the swell of the tide. See, they lived in traveling pods, feel me, with a mobile type living society. They packed light and lived off the land, mainly fruit, vegetables, and drink. The real names of the people are unknown because there was no real way to decipher their language or understand them. In truth, they really just learned about us and they were able to adopt our way. We don't really have a translation for their language. See, what we have are some translated words, and the words are just utterances if we don't really understand the true tongue. My French professor once told me that the French people don't speak French in French, or they don't speak English in French. They speak French in French. Okay, so this means that no one is speaking my language and translating it into their language, like in their head. See, those people have come up with their own language, their own culture, their own way, their tone, their pitches, their inflections, the meanings. See, in French, there are several ways of saying I love you. See, we've lost so much about them that we'll never actually get it back. How they thought and felt, how they traded and lived. For all we do know is that above all, they were a peaceful people. So why did we invade? What can be the purpose of putting our burden on such a people? So I started to calculate the blood of the war, how many people died. And I was doing a quick survey of what weapons they would use to fight against these advanced warriors. These bloodthirsty pirates would use to commit this massacre. What weapons would they use? And for the Roman Catholic Church, I already knew that they had the full might of Rome. Why, they would have everything you would see in the Lord of the Rings. Swords, shields, helmets, boots. And then I began to wonder about their boots. Now it seems arbitrary, but the wrong shoes in battle could cost you a war. See, I believe that this is how they kept from being completely taken over. I think the moccasin or the bare feet of the indigenous would let them see the day. See, we're talking about knights versus Indians. Spears versus spears, rock hammers, and blow darts. See, then I wondered, what kind of armor would the warriors have? See, there's never been an Indian warrior in metal. See, they have shields made of rawhide. But shoes and shirts? They didn't have shoes or shirts, but hats. What about ties, right? What about a watch? Have you ever seen an Indian with a watch at this time? Then I had to look deeper. And I came up with a list of things that the people had before, and after Europe arrived to the country. Most think that this rawhide outfit is Indian culture. You see this and you automatically think, oh, that's an Indian. However, the loom wasn't in the Americas at the time when the Europeans arrived. They brought it, which gave everyone mass clothing. Plus, the church gives out cloth and clothing and makes sure everyone is clothed and fed. So, the clothes that they have. they have to go. And then we see the hatchet, the faithful hatchet of the Indian. It's like they're connected with it through this union that's been them for thousands of years. But really, they had no metal. You see, the first evidence of a hatchet was in Australia. 50,000 years ago. Okay? It was made of stone and chipped away at the edge to make it sharp. Now, the bow and arrow. We see the bow and arrow with the Indian, and we believe these two, this technology and this thing, they go hand in hand together, right? They're one. The Indian must have invented the bow and arrow, but no, who uses the bow and arrow all the time? England. They have thousands of archers that their whole lives are driven around archery. They're archers for their whole life. So the bow and arrow that every Indian has in the 1500s didn't just pop. It actually just popped up one day. So we have to take the bow and arrow away. They didn't have that when the Europe arrived. Much evidence points to the presence of bows, like not a bow and arrow, but a bow like a staff, and a sharp stick, a spear. There were plenty of spears. However, the first bow was found in Africa over 70,000 years ago. So the spear is nothing new. Okay, they could have had that, and as well as the rock hammer, rock hatchet knives. So these things are so old that they didn't come from the Indian. They've been around and ingrained in our societies, in our worlds, for thousands of years, or the Indians didn't have the wisdom or the technology yet to be able to forge such things, especially in massive quantity. The final thing that we have to take away from the warrior that you see before you is the uniformity. You see, the indigenous people had no way of industrializing anything that they made. Everything they made was either made by hand, by yourself, or by the hand of someone that will do it for you, which is probably someone close to you or someone in the village that really knows how. See, I believe that there is no way that they could have access to all these technologies without the Europeans. We're trying to see what was the effect of Spain invading the Americas, and you see it right here before you. You see? All of these things that you see right here on you are what we achieved through our union with Spain. And that ends our episode, and I hope you join me on the next episode of the Belfield Show, where we finish our discussion of the warrior.